Welcome. As we begin, please turn off any electronic devices that may disturb the service. I invite you to enjoy the chapel in the back of the sanctuary and note joys and concerns in the book there. If you have little ones, we have a nursery downstairs. And after our service, I invite you all downstairs to enjoy hospitality and greet one another. Finally, please note the announcements in your order of service, with many ways to be engaged in this vibrant community.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Tori Longtig. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees, and it's my privilege to welcome you here today. Come, come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears. You are welcome here. If you come here with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, you are welcome here.
Good morning. This week we experienced the earth in an almost biblical way. The wind blowing wildly over the land, pulling the last blossoms from the trees, and then covering the world in white, making us grateful for moisture in whatever form we can get it, and the grace of snow that stays longer and melts slowly into the mountains and fills up those places that are craving an abundance of water. And on this day, so close to Earth Day, I offer the words of Edward Abbey, who found the land of the West especially holy, as many of us do. How strange and wonderful is our home, our earth, with its swirling, vaporous atmosphere, its flowing and frozen, climbing creatures, the croaking things with wings that hang on rocks and soar through fog, the furry grass, the scaly seas. How utterly rich and wild. Yet some among us have the nerve, the insolence, the brass, the gall to whine about the limitations of our earthbound fate and yearn for some more perfect world beyond the sky. We are, none of us, good enough for the world we have. And I add, I believe we are good enough. But being good enough means we must pay attention, we must pay homage, we must do everything we can to save this world that comes to us in such beauty. 1 out of 4 of my our wisteria vines are going to burst into bloom. And in the happiness that all of us feel and in our deep connection with this earth, I invite you to stand in body or spirit and let us sing together When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Hymn number 1008.
Place. like to invite Hunter Bovey to come up and light our chalice. Please join with me in saying the chalice lighting words in your order of service. We light this chalice for the light of truth, for the light of truth, and the energy of action. Thank you. You may be seated. I invited Hunter to light our chalice today. You may have noticed the last few weeks that I've been choosing much taller children to light the chalice. Our high school group is planning to attend our Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in June in Portland with thousands of other UUs. And so I have invited the 15 of them who are planning to go to practice being ambassadors and tell us, what it means to them to be a UU or why they'd like to go to GA. So here's Hunter.
So I'm not really a whole sure what it means to be a UU to me, and that's partly the reason that I'd like to go, is because I've identified as a UU for a lot of my life, but really never got a chance to really outreach to others outside of this community. So I'm excited for the opportunity and to find out what it means to me to be a UU. So that's why I want to go to GA.
Today we have the great pleasure to welcome a child into our community. We were going to have this service privately on Friday because a marvelous grandmother is visiting, and I thought, it would be so much more fun to have it all together. So I would like to invite the family there. I will go down there. And if you notice, they made an altar that shows that both parents are geologists. For the gift of childhood, whose innocence and laughter keep the world young, we rejoice and give thanks. May this precious life, which we have accepted, which we are in the process of accepting into our community of ideals and friendship, receive abundantly the blessings of health, love, knowledge, and wisdom, and in its turn, give back richly to its common heritage that endures from generation to generation. What is the name of this child?
Ethan Leon Bushnowski.
Ethan Leon Bushnowski. What is the name of this child?
Ethan Leon Bushnowski.
Ethan Leon Bushnowski, we welcome you into the world and affirm our commitment to you. By your worth, may generations be blessed. May your name generate love and respect in the years to come. And we have Ethan's parents, Michelle and Tom Bushnowski, and these words are for you. Michelle and Tom, in bringing Ethan to be celebrated and welcomed in this place, you acknowledge the need for loving care and your determination to guide him with understanding and commitment. Your love and devotion will support him for many years. Do you promise, to the best of your ability, by your example, your love, and your wisdom, to lead this child in the way of goodness, beauty, justice, and truth? If you would like to do this, please say, "We will."
We will.
Thank you. I now invite you both to express your hopes and prayers for Ethan.
My hope for Ethan Leon, my strong lion, my light, my hope is that he will carry his strength in his heart and on his shirt sleeve. May he have the strength to care, the strength to listen, the strength to find himself, and the strength to love.
My hope is that Ethan's family can guide him and give him every opportunity to be happy and successful in his life. And by being part of the UU Church, he will grow up to be a helpful and tolerant part of society. He can depend on this community to help guide him to discover his spirituality in whatever he chooses to believe.
Thank you. And Ethan's grandmother, Linda Cardos, is also here. Linda, your affection and devotion will support him for many years. Do you promise, to the best of your ability, by your example, your love, and your wisdom, to lead this child in the way of goodness, beauty, justice, and truth? I do. Thank you. And now I invite you to give your words of blessing.
My hope for my first grandson, Ethan, is to lead a happy and healthy life. I pray the innocence he has now as a baby will grow with him as an adult to be understanding, kind, patient, and strong, so he will be able to achieve, accept, and show his love of life.
Thank you. Now I would like all of the youth and children of the congregation to rise. Wow, we are many. Children and youth of this congregation, these parents have brought their dear child to be dedicated here today. As Ethan lives and grows among us, he soon will take their place with you in activities of this congregation. Will you welcome him and help him find his way? If so, say, "We will." We will.
Let's try that again. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We will.
Thank you. Wonderful. Now I would like the entire congregation to join the children and youth and stand. In body or spirit. Will you, will you, members and friends of the South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society, rejoice with these parents in the birth of their child? Will you take upon yourselves the sacred privilege and responsibility of nurturing Ethan's character and spirit, pledging to him and to his parents the love and care of the congregation? If so, please answer, "We will."
We will.
You may be seated. Please join me in this meditation and prayer. Sacred source of all life and source of this new life in our midst, we are in wonder at the miracle of birth, and we are overjoyed with gratitude for the precious life of this child. Grant to these parents and to all those who surround this family the wisdom and courage and strength to lead this child in the journey of his life. May this congregation be for him a firm root, a circle of love, and a source of vision. Amen. To dedicate this child, we make use of a budding flower held for us by our Director of Religious Education, Liz Martin. As we use this flower, let us remember that while we today embrace this child within our community, that this child is already part of the wholeness of this world. So as Ethan takes this ancient symbol of beauty, we bless him and dedicate his thoughts and speech and deeds to that which is noble and true. Ethan, may your heart always know love, your mind search for truth and beauty, your eyes always seek justice. May your hands find labor which fulfills you, your body carry you far, and your spirit forever seek the mountaintop. Amen. And thank you. We will now sing the children out, and very soon Ethan will be joining these children. If you can, put your feet flat on the floor and find that center that is within you. As you listen to the bell, I invite you to draw your mind to that earth that is so many feet under you. And then draw your mind downward into that beautiful, all of those layers of rock down to the fiery core. And then up, higher and higher, up into that universe that is dotted with bright stars. Let us breathe in and breathe out together. Each of us brings joys and sorrows with us as we journey through this life, and as your journey has brought you to this place on this beautiful morning. I invite you to bring those joys and sorrows into this community and think of spreading those joys and sorrows, lifting your hands and sending these out into our community so that we can hold them together. as always in the world, there is joy and there is sorrow. There is joy in almost everywhere on the earth as people, just as we did, wake to the sunshine. And there is the sorrow of the families of the 700 migrants on a boat crossing the Mediterranean who lost their lives. There is weeping in their cities and villages. Let us hold them too in the light of our community. And also Jessa's friends who are going south to be with their grandfather who is in the last days of his life. And all in this place who are mourning the death of children, parents, grandparents. Let us hold them all in the light of this place. I now invite you into a short time of silence, and during that time, I invite you to consider envisioning a world without walls. Amen, and may it be so.
One way that we at South Valley support our community is to share our Sunday morning offerings. Today, we will split the offering with Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment. UPHE is dedicated to protecting the health and well-being of the citizens of Utah by promoting science-based health education and efforts that result in measurable improvements to the environment. There's more information on UPHE in your orders of service announcements. Will you join with me in saying the words printed in the order of service for our offering? We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share in the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts.
thank you for your gifts, and Andrew, thank you for that beautiful music.
This is an excerpt from Saving Paradise by Rita Nakashima Brock and Rebecca Ann Parker. On their journey through Turkey, looking for artwork in early Christian churches that showed how prominent paradise had been in early theology, the authors Rita Nakashima Brock and Rebecca Ann Parker found themselves in a taxi climbing up a mountain in a storm. As we climbed, the sunny sky turned gray and began to roil with black clouds. Fat raindrops plopped onto the windshield. The higher we ascended, the more fiercely it rained. Soon the windshield wipers hardly marked the sheets of water pouring over the cab. After a long climb, we emerged into what looked like a big meadow, barely visible through the torrent. The driver, Erchun, pointed into the opaque downpour. "Church," he said. The hazy silhouette of stone ruins stood just beyond the trees. It had been hot and sunny in Artvin, so we had brought no gear for rain. We covered ourselves as best we could and conducted a quick and cursory look at the ruins, which held little art beyond a few relief carvings on the crumbling walls and capitals. Disappointed and nearly soaked, we returned quickly to the cab. The deluge ceased abruptly, and golden light leaked through the churning clouds. In the crystalline air, a rainbow straddled a vast rolling meadow below a ring of gray-blue peaks. Spread before us were acres of lush emerald pastures and orchards dotted by swaying flowers and flocks of snowy sheep. The three of us sat in stunned silence in the cab for some time, simply gazing at what we had crossed unseeing as it now lay before us, vivid in the golden light. Erchun retraced our route across this breathtaking valley. As we approached the turn that would take us down the mountain, we asked to stop. Erchun pulled the cab next to some sheep and turned off the motor. On the opposite side of the valley, where we had found the ruins, we could see a village nestled in the trees. An orange searchlight of sun streamed through a gap in the mountains and clouds, illuminating the ancient monastery stones. We paused a few moments to breathe in the fragrances brought by the breeze ruffling the grass and drank deeply of the valley. As we headed west, we could see crimson, gold, and mauve-streaked clouds billowing into a deepening indigo sky. Our last glimpse of paradise as we rounded a switchback and the valley disappeared from sight. Searching for images of paradise, we found the real thing.
One of the central images of Judeo-Christian history is the Garden of Eden, and that place is embodied in the word paradise, that means a garden surrounded by a wall. It is a safe place where all is peace and lions lie peacefully with lambs. Yet it is a land beyond our reach, either in the past or in the future. When I was around 5 years old, my family moved to the island of Bahrain. The years we spent there are some of the most vivid and happy times of my childhood. Bahrain is a small island with beaches that were a short ride from our house. The encampment where we lived with mostly British oil company employees even had a house dedicated to used things, my first thrift shop. I loved to walk around the encampment, and I loved to sit in our little garden and read and read and read. My brothers and sister and I could never walk very far. There was a fence, a wall around our encampment that kept us in. We often left, though, in our family car to go to the beach or to the tiny store on the edge of a date grove where they sold marbles, and my allowance allowed me to buy 3 marbles. And at night, we sometimes went out into the desert where there were no lights, and we watched the stars. The flat land that stretched in all directions to the Persian Gulf was lumpy in many places, with these burial mounds and other sites that were magnets for European archaeologists. Bahrain had been the home of the ancient Dilmun people who believed that the island was where all life began. That place was the paradise that Judeo-Christians have called the Garden of Eden. And it was while we lived on that island I heard about the Garden of Eden, not that Bahrain had been that garden. That I learned much later, but I learned about the creation story of the Old Testament. I think my mother had a pale blue flannel board, and I don't remember the figures of Adam and Eve. Perhaps they were too racy for the flannel board, but we learned in some way about Adam and Eve and the snake, and how there was this garden with forbidden fruit, and that when they ate that fruit, they discovered that being naked was shameful, and they had to cover themselves with fig leaves. Later, as a teenager, it seemed unfair that Adam and Eve were making a decision to leave that was really part of a plan to have families, and that led to the world as I knew it. And I thought that they shouldn't have been blamed for doing what they had done. Because if they were supposed to have families, why was childbirth a curse? I think I had early Unitarian tendencies. Medieval art often portrays the exit from the garden as the pivotal event. There was the good life on one side in the garden, and then the bad life. You see on one side of this tree of life a couple leaving the garden. They are all bowed down in shame at their disobedience and sorrow at their separation from God. The tree of life has often been portrayed as the dividing line between life in paradise and life in the harsh world. The garden becomes mythic and out of reach, hidden by a wall or a kind of veil that makes it impossible to find. It will always exist but somewhere outside of our reach. The history of this congregation, too, has a narrative of a kind of paradise that existed during the beginning years. These were times when relationships were being made, and the congregation held a dream of being a beacon of liberal religion and acceptance in the southern part of the Salt Lake Valley and beyond. And you had a minister, sometimes two ministers, that you loved very much. But like any community, we have had ups and downs. And I think as individuals, many of us have a period of life we look back to with longing. I look back to Bahrain with longing sometimes. And it is something we have to be careful about as we get older. Sometimes I find that all of a sudden I'm in a conversation at a dinner party about how much better it was before there was texting and email. And then I stop and I know that I have fallen into the trap. The same one I heard as a child with older people talking about whippersnappers or something like that. Every generation, even in ancient Rome, do you know, because I studied the graffiti of ancient Rome in graduate school, isn't that exciting? That every generation looks back nostalgically on what went before, and each generation is to some extent horrified by what is coming. Often, what we grew up with becomes our kind of Garden of Eden, where things were less complicated. And yet, technology, our scientists, our artists, keep forging on, breaking out of that garden, which to them felt far too small. These artists, scientists, and people in other fields often play a role similar to that of Adam and Eve. They experience a kind of restlessness. They feel awful that the rules they were given are somehow unbreakable. I think of Van Gogh, who broke the rules he was taught about painting, and these rules were sacred, and what emerged through his brushes was this incredible creativity that changed the world of art. And sometimes those artists and scientists pay a high price of isolation, or even they have to spend the last years of their life in house arrest, as did Galileo, for insisting that the sun was at the center of the universe. In other, perhaps less public ways, many of us grapple with urges to diverge from what we came from. We feel called to live differently, eat differently, create differently, love differently. And in these urges lies the possibility, or perhaps even inevitability, of exclusion. We are put in that no-win situation that Eve was in. And then we break out and we begin our journey in a more complex world. Another interesting aspect of paradise to me is that beautiful garden existed behind walls. This, I believe, articulates something deeply held in the West, that when we discover paradise, we are driven to construct walls to keep out people or things that don't fit in our paradise. I felt this almost viscerally as I watched the construction of a huge wall that extended farther and farther along the Arizona-Mexican border. Our walls, when they are built of fear, create suffering, always. The walls that surrounded the compound where I lived as a child were so exclusive that a large, friendly English sheepdog was shot by security guards when I was waiting with my friends for our school bus to come. I knew someone in Arizona whose life became so precious that he surrounded his living place with a wall and armed himself with ferocious dogs and an arsenal to stave off the imagined possibilities of intrusion. And I believe that those walls destroyed his paradise, turning what was precious into a place of fear. Our walls that are intended to protect our happiness often end up destroying it. The paradise of the compound. And I believe we have often thought of this great country in this way. This wall that we create around privilege, unfortunately or fortunately, is no longer tenable. It is an illusion for which we must gather a larger and larger arsenal to protect. Climate change, perhaps more than any other challenge facing our world as we know it, our paradise, demonstrates over and over again that there are no walls high enough to shield us from what will happen. Today, on this Sunday that is closest to Earth Day, let us open our eyes to how we can take down walls. This is clear to me every time I go to the Capitol, and this year I went many times, because I look around me and I see that the people who share our convictions generally, I hate to use the word always, but we do not make up a majority. Would you agree with me on that one? And if we create walls through our attitudes, our reactivity, then we will only ever be a tiny little group, way